Welcome to Chasing. If you like what I do here, please consider subscribing and sticking around for more. Let's get started on today's video. In the last episode, we talked about 4 people who walked out of their homes in New Mexico and never came back. Same state, same behavior, phones left behind, tracking devices stripped, and then nothing. But the disappearances are only half of the conversation happening right now. Because over the past 3 years, a number of people connected to NASA, the Department of Defense, nuclear research, and advanced aerospace programs have also died. Some under circumstances that are genuinely unexplained, and some under circumstances that have reported answers. I need to say something before we go any further. I'm including every name that's currently part of this public discussion. Every person being connected to what people are calling the pattern. But I'm a realist. Not everything connects. Some of these cases are strange and open. Others have suspects, arrests, or identified causes of death. I'm not going to disrespect the people who died or the families still looking for answers by forcing every case into a box it might not belong in. If a case has a reported explanation, I'll give you that explanation. If a case has no explanation, I'll tell you that too. I'm including all of them because they're part of the conversation, and because even the cases with answers raise questions about timing, about institutional silence, and about what it means when this many people connected to the same world end up dead or gone in the same window of time. Let's get into it. Brookline, Massachusetts, December 15th, 2025. Nuno Loredo was 47 years old, director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center, a theoretical physicist whose work on plasma behavior had real implications for fusion energy research and astrophysics. He held research contracts with the Department of Energy. A longtime friend and collaborator, Alex Shekochihin, said it was difficult to find anyone who didn't like him. A fantastic physicist, a very effective leader with a clear vision and sophisticated sense of strategy, and an amazing human being. On the evening of December 15th, he was shot multiple times at his home in Brookline. He died the following day. 2 days before that, a mass shooting tore through an engineering building at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. 2 students killed, 9 wounded. The suspect in both attacks was identified as the same person, Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, a 48-year-old Portuguese national whose last known residence was in Miami, Florida. Valente and Loredo knew each other. Both attended the Instituto Superior Técnico in Lisbon, Portugal's most prestigious engineering school, between 1995 and 2000. Same physics program, both brilliant. But where Loredo was remembered as relaxed and well-liked, classmates described Valente as confrontational and combative. He graduated top of his class, but was let go from a position at the university in 2000. Loredo graduated that same year and went on to build an extraordinary career. Valente enrolled at Brown as a graduate student, left after 1 year, and largely vanished from academic life for 25 years. No published papers, no known research positions. After the killings, Valente was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a storage unit in New Hampshire, one he'd rented 3 years earlier. The Department of Justice released translated transcripts of videos he'd recorded in Portuguese. He confessed to both attacks. He said he'd been planning for at least 6 semesters. He gave no motive. He said he felt he had nothing to apologize for. I'm including Loredo on this list because the timing, December 2025, right in the middle of this cluster, and his institutional connections have put him in the conversation. But the reported facts here are clear. Investigators identified the shooter, documented the personal history between the two men going back decades, and recovered confession videos. Portuguese professor Carlos Fiolhais called it aberrant and deeply disturbing for the scientific community. But he was describing the act itself, not an unexplained mystery. Could there be more to it? People have asked that question. Valente planned for years, used untraceable phones and credit cards not in his name, and deliberately refused to state a motive even in recordings he made to be found after his death. Those details sit uncomfortably next to the simpler explanation. But as of right now, this case has an identified suspect, a documented backstory, and a confession. That puts it in a different category than what's coming next. Llano, California, February 16th, 2026, 6:10 a.m. Carl Grillmair lived in the desert because the darkness was better for looking at the sky. He'd built his own observatory at his home in Llano, a remote community in the Antelope Valley, north of Los Angeles, where light pollution was low and the night sky still meant something. In his spare time, he flew airplanes. He was 67 years old, 30 years at Caltech's Infrared Processing and Analysis Center, 26 of those alongside fellow scientist Sergio Fajardo Acosta, who said working with Grillmair was truly detective work, allowing him to infer events that took place many billions of years ago. His research spanned dark matter, galactic structure, stellar populations, and exoplanets. He helped discover dozens of stellar streams. He contributed to the Hubble and Spitzer space telescopes. He was part of the team that found water on a planet less than 160 light-years from Earth. At the time of his death, he was working on the NEO Surveyor, a next-generation space telescope designed to find asteroids and comets on a collision course with Earth. On the morning of February 16th, deputies responded to a 911 call at Grillmair's home. They found him on his front porch with a gunshot wound to the torso. Paramedics pronounced him dead at the scene. Tom Green, IPAC's executive director, said he was part of IPAC's bedrock. A colleague called him irreplaceable. While deputies were still at the scene, a second call came in, a carjacking in the same area. They found and detained a 29-year-old man named Freddie Snyder. He was subsequently linked to Grillmair's shooting and charged with murder, carjacking, and a separate burglary from late December. Bail set at $3.175 million. The carjacking victim was identified by the Los Angeles Times as Snyder's own mother. On the surface, suspect identified, arrested, charged. Case closed, or at least headed that direction. But then you look at what happened 2 months earlier. On December 20th, 2025, Carl Grillmair called police himself. He'd spotted someone on his property. Deputies arrived and found Freddie Snyder in the area carrying a loaded, unregistered rifle. Snyder told them he was walking to the post office. Property records show that Grillmair's home and the local post office are in opposite directions from Snyder's home. Snyder was arrested. 2 felony charges, carrying a loaded firearm in a personal vehicle and attempted escape from jail. He was released on his own recognizance on December 23rd. 3 days after his arrest, he was out. The case went before Judge Osman Abbasi. Abbasi told Snyder to complete a gun safety course and released him. Snyder was ordered to return to court on February 5th. He didn't show up. Despite the no-show, the gun safety course was accepted and both felony charges were dismissed under California Penal Code 1385, a provision that allows judges to drop charges in the interest of justice. No public explanation was given for why a man who was arrested with a loaded, unregistered rifle on someone else's property, who then tried to escape from jail, who then failed to appear in court, had his charges dismissed. 11 days after the charges were dropped, Freddie Snyder allegedly returned to Carl Grillmair's home and shot him dead on his front porch. Maybe Snyder is exactly what he looks like. A troubled, violent man in a remote area who fixated on a property and escalated. California's criminal justice system has been under intense scrutiny for exactly this kind of failure. But the timeline raises questions that the arrest alone doesn't answer. How does a man get caught with a loaded rifle on a scientist's property, get charged with 2 felonies, fail to show for court, have the charges dismissed anyway, and then allegedly kill that same scientist 11 days later? The system either failed catastrophically, or something about this sequence doesn't add up. Either way, Carl Grillmair is dead. Since I recorded this episode, Carl Grillmair's widow Louise has spoken publicly. She's been direct. The conspiracy theories are absolute nonsense and denigrating to her husband's memory. She says Snyder killed Carl over a neighborhood dispute. Carl had confronted him for trespassing. Snyder came back thinking Carl was the one who'd called 911. Louise says Carl was the nicest guy and would have laughed at all of this, while probably using statistics to debunk the whole pattern. She's not wrong to push back. Carl's case is the one where we have an arrested suspect, a documented conflict, and a clear sequence of events. The problem isn't whether that story is true. The problem is the 11 days between when the charges were dismissed and when he was killed. That's where Judge Osman Abbasi comes in. In August 2025, just months before the Snyder case, he was appointed to the bench by Governor Newsom. He has strong institutional ties to the California Attorney General's office and the LA County Inspector General. On February 5th, he dismissed Snyder's felonies under California Penal Code 1385, in the interest of justice. No explanation. 11 days later, Carl Grillmair was dead. The curiosity now isn't about whether Abbasi did anything wrong. It's about why a judge would dismiss a case against a man arrested with a loaded rifle on someone else's property, who then tried to escape, who then failed to appear in court, and have it happen so fast that Snyder was back out before the week ended. And whether that decision, made by a judge with those institutional connections at that moment in time, means anything. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory sits in La Cañada Flint Ridge, California, federally funded, managed by Caltech for NASA. It builds planetary spacecraft. It operates the Deep Space Network, the global system of giant radio antennas that allows NASA to communicate with missions far beyond Earth. It employs roughly 5,500 people. In 2.5 years, 4 people connected to that laboratory are gone. 3 dead, 1 missing. And the institution has said almost nothing about any of them. Michael David Hicks, 59 years old, research scientist at JPL from 1998 to 2022, 24 years, over 80 published scientific papers. He specialized in the physical properties of comets and asteroids. He worked on the Deep Space One probe, which flew past Comet Borrelli in 2001 and tested 12 experimental technologies in a single flight. The Near-Earth Asteroid Tracking Project, cataloging objects that could threaten Earth. The Dawn mission, which orbited the asteroid Vesta and the dwarf planet Ceres, characterizing their composition and structure. And DART, the first ever mission to test deflecting an asteroid by ramming a spacecraft into it. DART proved it could work. Hicks helped make that possible. His colleague, Dr. Joe Maciero, lead scientist for the NEO surveyor at Caltech, told Newsweek, "He put a lot of work into mentoring the next generation. He was such a good soul who really wanted to help students and gave them the best opportunities possible." Hicks died on July 30th, 2023, at his home in Sunland, California. His obituary described him as an astronomer, artist, and father who passed away. No cause, no context. NASA issued no statement. JPL issued no statement. The LA County coroner later listed the cause of death as arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease, with morbid obesity as a contributing condition. Manner of death? Natural. But the coroner's case file remains listed as open. No autopsy record has been located in the public domain. This may be the most straightforward case on the entire list. Heart disease kills people at 59. But the open case file and the institutional silence are what keep his name in the conversation. If it was simply a natural death, a statement from JPL would have settled it years ago. They chose not to make one. Frank Maywald, 61 years old, born in Ratingen, Germany, 25 years at JPL. He held the title of JPL Principal, an internal designation reserved for scientists making outstanding individual contributions. Multiple NASA awards. Maywald designed instruments. At the time of his death, he was working on the Surface Biology and Geology mission, building a visible to shortwave infrared instrument to map Earth's biological and geological signatures from orbit. He'd also worked on instruments for European Sentinel satellites, sensor systems that measure ocean surface conditions and atmospheric water vapor with precision relevant to both climate science and military navigation. But the most significant detail about Maywald's work is what he accomplished 13 months before he died. He led a research breakthrough in passive radio detection of subsurface liquid water beneath the icy surfaces of Jupiter's moons, a technique that could scan for hidden oceans on Europa and Enceladus from orbit without landing, a way to search for the conditions that support life on other worlds from a distance, without announcing that you're looking. He died on July 4th, 2024, in Los Angeles. No cause of death has been released. No autopsy was performed. The Daily Mail confirmed no autopsy record exists. A single obituary was posted. His family wrote that Frank's life was a testament to the power of dedication, love, and kindness. NASA issued no statement. JPL issued no statement. The only public record that Frank Werner Maywald existed and then stopped existing is that obituary. Monica Reza, 60 years old, Director of Materials Processing at JPL, aerospace engineer, bachelor's from Columbia in metallurgical engineering, master's from UCLA in materials engineering. She spent most of her career at Aerojet Rocketdyne, where she and her mentor, Dallas Hardwick, co-invented Mondaloy, a nickel-based superalloy that could withstand extreme temperatures and high-pressure oxygen-rich environments without combusting or requiring protective coatings. Mondaloy mattered because the United States had depended on Russian-built RD-180 rocket engines for 2 decades. engines that powered the satellites carrying American intelligence, military communications, GPS, and NASA science missions. When Russia cut off access, America needed to build its own. The problem was the materials. How to make metal that could survive conditions that would melt or burn anything else. Mondelloy solved it. The alloy was used in approximately 12 components of Aerojet Rocketdyne's AR-1 replacement engine and the hydrocarbon boost technology demonstrator. In a 2017 interview with Space News, Reza explained, "Because Mondelloy is a family of alloys, I worked with the Air Force to scale up production, look at different processing methods, and get the material ready for insertion into a rocket engine." The Air Force Research Laboratory funded Mondelloy's development starting in 1999. McCasland commanded that laboratory from May 2011 to July 2013, overseeing $4.4 billion in science, technology, and customer-funded research at Wright-Patterson. His budget directly funded the programs that depended on Reza's alloy. Reza's co-inventor, Dallas Hardwick, worked as a senior scientist at that same lab under McCasland. The New York Post reported that the alloy brought her into the orbit of McCasland. Though no direct personal relationship has been publicly confirmed, they were on the same programs, funded by the same money, at the same time. Hardwick died in Dayton, Ohio on January 4th, 2014, stage 4 breast cancer, while still working remotely for the Air Force Research Lab. She'd been awarded the Meritorious Civilian Service Medal. Her death didn't make the Dayton Daily News. Until 2023, every public record listed Monica under the name Monica Jacinto as a technical fellow at Aerojet Rocketdyne. The 2016 Cal State LA newsletter, the 2021 Launchpad page, the 2017 Space News profile, all said Aerojet Rocketdyne. Then, in July 2023, L3 Harris acquired Aerojet for $4.7 billion. After that, Monica appeared on the 2024 to 2025 Dean's Advisory Board at Caltech under her family name, Reza, with her affiliation listed as JPL. On the morning of June 22, 2025, Monica went hiking on the Mount Waterman Trail in the Angeles National Forest. Recent reporting from journalist Lauren Conlin revealed new details. A source connected to the group confirmed that Monica was hiking with a male and female companion from her yoga studio, a studio that incorporated astrology and Vedic sciences into its practice. The source also described something unusual about the hike itself. Monica and her male companion were running on the terrain during parts of the descent. The source called this uncommon given how steep and uneven the trail is. This would not be a place to go running, even as a skilled hiker. Around 9:10 a.m., the male companion was approximately 30 feet ahead. He turned to check on Monica. She smiled and waved. He continued. When he looked back, she was gone. She was reportedly carrying a backpack with several liters of water. The search was massive. LA County Sheriff's Department led it, coordinating with search and rescue teams from across Southern California. Helicopters, radar, thermal imaging, infrared cameras, an algorithmic pixel matching program calibrated to detect the specific red of Monica's shirt. Scent dogs tracked her into a steep ravine south of the ridge, then lost her trail completely. No exit point, no entry point. A beanie believed to be hers was found in the ravine, but the dogs couldn't pick up her scent from it. On June 30th, the initial search phase concluded, and the case was transferred to the LA County Sheriff's Homicide Bureau, Missing Persons Unit. Another search was conducted on August 8th. Nothing. 4 days after Monica disappeared, and 3 days before the official search was suspended, someone created a memorial page for her on Find a Grave. It listed her date of death as June 22nd, 2025, the day she vanished, not the day she was confirmed dead. She hasn't been confirmed dead. The burial type was listed as green burial, no embalming, no coffin, a body returned directly to the earth. The memorial was created by someone identified as Lillian. That profile is no longer publicly accessible. The memorial has since been removed from the site. Someone declared Monica dead and buried while search and rescue teams from half the state of California were still on the mountain looking for her. And then, the silence. Aerojet Rocketdyne issued no public statement about her disappearance. NASA issued no statement. JPL issued no statement. The AIAA, the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, issued no acknowledgement. Space News, which published a feature profile of her in December 2017, did not cover her disappearance. Aviation Week didn't cover it. Defense News didn't cover it. The only signal from anyone inside the system was a Reddit comment on r/SoCal hiking. Quote, "Any updates on the search? I'm a JPLer and something is not right about this story. She needs to be found." She was one of theirs, and the entire aerospace industry has acted like it didn't happen. Monica Reza has been missing for 10 months. Wakefield, Massachusetts, December 12, 2025. Jason Thomas, 45 years old, Associate Director of Chemical Biology at Novartis, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, working on cancer treatments. Left his home in Wakefield, Massachusetts late at night, left his phone and wallet behind. Surveillance footage captured him walking near train tracks shortly after midnight. 3 months later, on March 17, 2026, a Wakefield police detective searching the Lake Quannapowitt area, which had previously been frozen, located his body. Authorities said no foul play was suspected. Cause and manner of death have not been publicly disclosed. His obituary on Legacy.com said he passed away unexpectedly after having been missing since December 12, 2025. Thomas is the hardest to connect to the defense and aerospace pattern. He worked in pharma. His disappearance looks like the New Mexico cases in form, leaving at night, leaving devices behind, but his professional world was different. Some outlets have noted that Novartis holds active Department of Defense contracts, but whether Thomas's specific work intersected with any of those contracts has not been publicly reported. He's on the list because of the behavior and the timing. Whether he belongs there is something I'll leave to you. Amy Eskridge, 34 years old. The earliest case on the list by 3 years. Huntsville is a city that exists because of the Marshall Space Flight Center, where the Saturn V engines were developed. Aerospace and defense research is the economic backbone. If you live and work in Huntsville's technical community, you're in the orbit of the space program. Eskridge co-founded the Institute for Exotic Science with her father, Richard Eskridge, a retired NASA engineer who specialized in plasma physics and fusion technology. He served as the company's chief technology officer. In 2018, the two of them delivered a presentation on behalf of another company they ran, Holocron Engineering, describing historical and modern experiments related to gravity modification. She described the institute as a public-facing persona to disclose anti-gravity technology. She also said at one point that she intended to present new foundational research, but required authorization from NASA before doing so. She was public about what she believed the work was costing her.
that they like, I have multiple Bluetooth attacks, like physical proximal within 100 feet of me, physically Bluetooth attacks that I have logs and live packet captures for all over town. No, it's not cool. It's disturbing. It's disturbing. I have Bluetooth attacks that happened within 100 feet of me at my co-working space at my office and at local bars and at the local university
Yeah,
within
you know who
100
did
feet
it
of
at
me.
your co-working space? It was the guy from Atlanta, right?
That was SRI guy. There's like so many people that have gone through that co-working space. Like my co-working space is like the internet was set up by this NSA black hat hacker dude that I hate. His name is Greg. Have you ever talked to a group that claims to be the anti-cabal? Okay, the Mana World Holdings Trust is, they claim to be the anti-cabal. He was like, okay, listen to me. It's been independently discovered 4 other times. It has been, he said it has been suppressed every single fucking time. And
In a 2020 interview with YouTuber Jeremy Rice, she described what she said was a multi-year pattern of escalating harassment and threats. Quote, "We discovered anti-gravity and our lives went to shit and people started sabotaging us. It's harassment, threats. It's awful." She said the threats had become more and more aggressive. She described incidents where she claimed an unknown person fired what she called a directed energy weapon at her, causing burns across her body. She said she needed to publish because it was only going to get worse until I publish. And then she said this, and these are her exact words from that interview. Quote, "If you stick your neck out in public, at least someone notices if your head gets chopped off. If you stick your neck out in private, they will bury you. They will burn down your house while you're sleeping in your bed, and it won't even make the news." She said that's why the Institute existed. Public visibility was her insurance policy. 2 years later, June 11th, 2022, she was found dead of a gunshot wound at her home in Huntsville. She was 34 years old. Her death was ruled self-inflicted. Neither the Huntsville Police Department nor the medical examiner's office has released a public investigative report. Before her death, Eskridge had contacted retired British intelligence officer Frank Milburn for help investigating the harassment she said she was experiencing. Milburn concluded that her death was not a suicide. His findings were submitted to Congress by independent investigators in 2023. On Coast to Coast AM, Milburn said, quote, "Somebody was after her work. It was either one of two main objectives. One, trying to get her to desist from doing the work, and two, with these attacks, with the harassment and the directed energy weapon attacks, to actually stop her, to debilitate her so she was unable to do the work." Her father has publicly said there was nothing suspicious about her death. He has asked people to stop using it for conspiracy theories. The Institute for Exotic Science has shut down since Eskridge's death. Its website is no longer accessible. Archives of the organization's documentation have surfaced online, including analyses of anti-gravity propulsion and images of what the Institute described as UFO-inspired aerospace vehicles. Eskridge's case sits in a space where official ruling, personal testimony, independent investigation, and a father's grief all exist on the record, and none of them agree. The official cause of death is suicide. The woman who died said on camera, 2 years before it happened, that people were trying to stop her work, and that if they succeeded, nobody would notice. Her associate took his findings to Congress. Her father says it's not what it looks like. I'm presenting all of it because all of it exists. What I'm not going to do is tell you which version is the truth, because I don't know. And anyone who tells you they're certain in either direction is selling you something. For most of 2025, these cases existed in isolation. Melissa Casillas was in the Taos News. Anthony Chavez was a police flyer on Facebook. Monica Reza was a missing hiker story. Stephen Garcia was a local Albuquerque case. Nuno Loredo was a mass shooting. Jason Thomas was a brief news cycle about a man found in a lake. Each one got its own round of coverage, maybe a few tips, maybe a search party. Then the news moved on. Nobody was connecting them. Then William McCasland disappeared on February 27, 2026. He was Wright-Patterson. He was the Pentagon. He was Special Access Programs. Within days, his name was in the WikiLeaks archives, on Reddit, on investigation forums, and in the inbox of every journalist covering UAP disclosure. His wife's Facebook post on March 6th, intended to stop the speculation, accelerated it. She confirmed the DeLong connection, the classified access, the Podesta meeting. She confirmed it all while telling you it was irrelevant. Independent researchers started mapping. The Sentinel Network published deep investigative pieces, pulling funding chains, patent records, institutional affiliations. They found the green burial listing. They traced the connection between Reza's alloy and McCasland's budget at the Air Force Research Lab. A blog called The Liberty Line started keeping a running count. The count is now 6, then 8, then 9, then 10. That language spread. News Nation's Ross Coulthart called McCasland's disappearance a grave national security crisis on air. Reporter Lauren Conlin started comparing the cases in segments. Men's Journal, Newsweek, CBS, Fox, The Hill all picked it up. On April 16th, Fox News reporter Peter Doocy asked White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, quote, "There are now 10 American scientists who have either gone missing or died since mid-2024. They all reportedly had access to classified nuclear or aerospace material. Is anybody investigating this to see if these things are connected?" Leavitt said she'd look into it. The next day, Trump told reporters he'd just left a meeting on it. Quote, "Pretty serious stuff. I hope it's random, but we're going to know in the next week and a half." The NNSA confirmed it was looking into the matter. NASA confirmed it was cooperating with federal agencies. FBI Director Kash Patel told Fox News the FBI was investigating, saying all evidence would be brought together on each person. Then it escalated again. On April 20th, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer and Subcommittee Chairman Eric Burleson sent formal letters to the Pentagon, FBI, NASA, and the Department of Energy, demanding information and requesting staff-level briefings by April 27th. Comer told reporters he'd initially thought the whole thing sounded like some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. Then he looked at the facts. Quote, "Once you see the facts, it would suggest that something sinister could be happening, and it would be a national security concern. It's very unlikely that this is a coincidence. Congress is very concerned about this. Our committee is making this one of our priorities now because we view this as a national security threat." Burleson said the cases had all the hallmarks of a foreign operation. The official language from the Oversight Committee's press release, quote, "If the reports are accurate, these deaths and disappearances may represent a grave threat to U.S. national security and to U.S. personnel with access to scientific secrets." The Department of Defense had already responded to initial committee outreach. Their answer? There are no active national security investigations of any reported missing person who was a current or a former DoD clearance holder and involved in special access programs. The Oversight Committee called that response unsatisfactory, saying it left them with many unanswered questions. 7 weeks. Reddit threads to House Oversight Committee letters to 4 federal agencies, with a deadline. The public noticed the pattern first. Independent researchers mapped it. The institutions are still playing catch-up. Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee was asked about all of this on camera. He said there are, quote, no coincidences in this town. I was briefed last week on an issue, and it would have set the earth on. This country would have come unglued, I think, if they would have heard all that I heard. They would demand answers. And the people that know are dying or disappearing, as the case may be. Then, unprompted, he added, quote, for the record, I'm not suicidal and I don't take risks. A sitting member of Congress, on camera. Nobody in the room flinched. At this point, there are essentially 5 theories circulating about what's happening, and they range from the mundane to the deeply uncomfortable. Every one of them has people behind it who are serious. Every one of them has holes. I want to lay them all out because you deserve to hear them, weigh them against each other, and make up your own mind. Theory 1. Coincidence. This is the position that some experts and analysts have taken publicly. The cases span several years across loosely affiliated organizations in different states. Joseph Rogers at the Center for Strategic and International Studies told CBS News, if all of the scientists were working on one project or weapon system, then I'd be more suspicious. Glenn Beck made a similar argument. Pharma, fusion, space, that's a wide net. Institutions rarely disclose details around employee deaths. Passed away suddenly is standard language, not evidence of concealment. Under this theory, Hicks died of heart disease. Grillmair was killed by a violent drifter who slipped through the cracks of the criminal justice system. Loredo was murdered by a jealous former classmate. Thomas's death in the lake is a personal tragedy. The New Mexico disappearances may be mental health crises, people leaving voluntarily, people in distress. The problem with this theory is the clustering. 4 walkaways in New Mexico with identical behavior. 3 JPL-connected deaths in 30 months. The timing overlapping with the UAP disclosure acceleration. Each individual case might have an explanation. Stacked together, coincidence starts requiring a lot of faith. Theory 2. Foreign espionage. This is the theory that former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker pointed to. He told reporters, our scientists have been targeted for a long time, especially in the rocket propulsion area, by hostile foreign intelligence services. Subcommittee Chairman Burleson said the cases have all the hallmarks of a foreign operation. Under this theory, foreign intelligence services, China, Russia, Iran, are targeting people who hold strategic knowledge about American nuclear weapons infrastructure, rocket propulsion materials, satellite systems, and planetary defense technology. The walkaway pattern in New Mexico could be staged disappearances after extraction. The shootings could be targeted killings made to look like random violence or personal grudges. The problem with this theory is that there's no publicly reported evidence of foreign involvement in any of these cases. The FBI hasn't confirmed an espionage angle, and the range of targets, from a 2-star general to an administrative assistant at Los Alamos, doesn't fit the typical profile of high-value intelligence extraction, where you'd expect the focus to be narrow and the targets to be at the top of the clearance ladder. Theory 3. Domestic actors, private contractors protecting programs. This is the theory that journalist Ross Coulthart has been building toward in his reporting. It's also the one implied by Amy Eskridge's warnings before her death and by Congressman Burchett's on-camera statements. The argument goes like this. After the Cold War, much of America's most sensitive research, including programs allegedly involving recovered non-human technology, was moved out of government labs and into private defense contractors. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Aerojet Rocketdyne. These contractors operate under special access programs, but are harder for Congress to oversee than government-run programs. David Grush testified under oath in 2023 that some of these programs are improperly shielded, hidden even from congressional oversight committees. Coulthart has reported on air that there have been physical confrontations between U.S. military personnel and private military contractors over recovered materials, and that people have been murdered to protect this secret. Under this theory, the people who are disappearing or dying know things that are about to become public, and someone inside the system is removing them before they can be compelled to testify, subpoenaed, or reached by investigators. The timing, clustered around the UAP disclosure acceleration, Trump's announcement about releasing UFO files, and the congressional push for transparency, would support this. The problem with this theory is that it requires a coordinated, sustained domestic operation targeting multiple people across multiple states over multiple years, and keeping it entirely hidden from law enforcement. That's a significant claim. It also raises the question of why McCasland, who retired 13 years ago, would suddenly become a target now. His wife's answer, that his information is dated, is one response. The counter is that if disclosure is coming, the people who can confirm what's been hidden become liabilities, regardless of when they learned it. Theory 4. UAP disclosure suppression. This overlaps with Theory 3, but takes it a step further. Under this theory, the disappearances and deaths are directly connected to the UAP disclosure timeline, and the targets are people who have knowledge about non-human technology, reverse engineering programs, or the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. McCasland's connection to Tom DeLonge and the Podesta emails, his oversight of special access programs, his command of the Air Force Research Lab at Wright-Patterson, the base that has been rumored for 79 years to house recovered Roswell materials, his wife's Facebook post referencing ET bodies and debris, even sarcastically, puts the words on the record. Monica Reza's alloy was funded by the same lab McCasland commanded. If Mondeloy's development was informed by, or reverse engineered from, materials of unknown origin, that would make Reza and her co-inventor Dallas Hardwick among the very few people who would know. Hardwick died quietly in 2014. Reza vanished in 2025. McCasland vanished in 2026, 6 days after Trump announced plans to release UFO files. Eskridge was explicitly working on anti-gravity propulsion and explicitly said she was being threatened for it. Lorero's fusion research has theoretical connections to zero-point energy, a concept that appears in the Podesta emails from astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who described it as connected to extraterrestrial intelligence. The problem with this theory is that much of it is built on inference and proximity rather than documented evidence. The Podesta emails are real. Grush's testimony is sworn. But the leap from these people worked in related fields to they were killed because of what they knew about aliens requires connecting dots that haven't been publicly confirmed. It also risks turning genuine tragedies into props for a narrative that the families of the deceased may not recognize or want. Theory 5. Some of both and some of neither. This is the one that probably sits closest to reality, because reality is usually messier than any single theory allows. Maybe Lorero was killed by a bitter classmate, and it has nothing to do with the rest. Maybe Hicks died of a heart attack. Maybe Thomas walked into a lake in December for reasons that are personal and tragic and have nothing to do with national security. And maybe the New Mexico walkaways are something else entirely. Maybe Monica Reza's disappearance is connected to McCasland through the funding chain they shared. Maybe Eskridge was telling the truth. The honest answer, the one that nobody on television or in a podcast wants to give you because it doesn't make for a clean narrative, is that some of these cases probably have explanations that are ordinary and heartbreaking, and some of them probably don't. And the challenge is that we don't get to pick which ones are which based on what makes the best story. What we do know is that the institutions that could answer these questions have chosen not to. NASA hasn't spoken. JPL hasn't spoken. Aerojet Rocketdyne hasn't spoken. The aerospace media that profiled these people when they were alive went silent when they disappeared or died. And the only reason any of this is being investigated at all is because people on the internet started counting the names and refused to stop asking why. 11 people. 4 walked out of homes in New Mexico and vanished. 1 wiped 2 phones before she left. 1 took a revolver and a red backpack. 1 took a bottle of water and a handgun. 1 left his car locked with the keys inside. 3 people connected to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory are dead. A 4th has been missing for 10 months. Someone declared her dead 4 days after she disappeared, while helicopters were still in the air. An MIT physicist was shot at his front door by a former classmate who confessed on video and refused to say why. A Caltech astrophysicist was shot on his porch by a man who should have been in jail. A pharmaceutical researcher walked into the night and was found in a frozen lake. A 34-year-old anti-gravity researcher told the world her life was in danger and was found dead 2 years later. The chairman of the House Oversight Committee initially thought this sounded like a crazy conspiracy theory. Now he's calling it a national security threat and demanding briefings from 4 federal agencies by April 27th. The people who noticed this first, on forums, on independent blogs, mapping connections while the institutions were still silent, were dismissed as conspiracy theorists. Then Ducey asked the question at the White House podium. Then the president sat down for a meeting. Then the FBI director confirmed an investigation. Then the Oversight Committee opened a formal inquiry. William McCasland, missing 53 days. Monica Reza, missing 10 months. Melissa Cassius, missing 10 months. Anthony Chavez, missing nearly a year. Stephen Garcia, missing 8 months. Nuno Loredo, dead. Carl Grillmair, dead. Frank Maywald, dead. Michael David Hicks, dead. Jason Thomas, dead. Amy Eskridge, dead. 5 theories, 11 people, 0 answers. This is not over. (1982 to 1990). 25 scientists connected to GEC-Marconi, space weapons research. Ruled coincidence, no inquiry. 1997 to 2021. Researchers working on free energy, zero-point energy, anti-gravity, and UAP-related technology. Deaths scattered across decades, across countries, barely acknowledged, no pattern investigation. 2001 to 2005. At least 11 microbiologists. Bioweapons and infectious disease research. No investigation, no inquiry. 2022 to 2026. 11 people. Aerospace, nuclear, defense, and advanced research. For the first time, Congress is asking. For the first time, the White House is engaged. For the first time, there is a deadline. And now, since I recorded this episode, David Wilcock is dead. He was an internet personality and author known for promoting ideas about extraterrestrials, hidden technologies, and disclosure. Not a credentialed scientist, not an academic, but someone with a significant platform who had been very publicly discussing the disclosure timeline, government secrets, and what's really happening in the classified world. On April 19th, 2026, David Wilcock went live on his platform. For 3 hours, he streamed what appeared to be a man in distress. It wasn't a careful analysis. It wasn't a structured presentation. It was a scattered 3-hour ramble, jumping between politics, disclosure theories, health complaints, and spiritual messaging. He spent long stretches analyzing a controversial presidential image, cycling through conflicting explanations without landing on any of them. His energy was low. His thoughts were disorganized. His tone kept shifting, agitated one moment, spiritual the next, fearful the next. There were no explicit statements about harming himself, but the overall picture was a man who was clearly struggling, detached from stable reality, cycling through unverified theories, displaying emotional instability. Then he went offline. According to police, he called 911. He said he was sorry and hung up. When officers arrived, he fired a test shot and then shot himself in the head. Congressman Tim Burchett said on camera, "For the record, I'm not suicidal and I don't take risks." Amy Eskridge said on camera before she died, "If you stick your neck out in private, they will bury you. They will burn down your house while you're sleeping in your bed, and it won't even make the news." People say they're going to live, and then they don't. But this is the honest part. According to police, David Wilcock called 911, said he was sorry, and then shot himself. That's the official account. And that may be exactly what happened. But in December 2022, more than 3 years earlier, he posted, "I plan on living, not suicidal at all, just concerned about what happens when you prove God is real." And on April 19th, 2026, hours before he died, he was posting about disclosure and government secrets. So the question isn't, did David Wilcock kill himself? According to police, yes. The question is, why did a man who posted years ago that he would live, who was posting that day about disclosure, suddenly call 911 and say he was sorry? Perhaps because he was suffering and his mind had changed. A lot can change in 3 years. Many close to him are on social media saying he would never self-eliminate. Not ever. But here we are, and David is no longer here. Maybe the answer is simpler than people want it to be. Maybe there is no larger connection, no coordinated pattern, no hidden hand tying these cases together. What we do have are real people, under pressure, in high-stress environments, sometimes dealing with things we don't see. And when something tragic happens, the instinct is to connect it, to make it mean something bigger than it is. But not everything is a signal. Sometimes it's just loss. And that doesn't make it less important. It makes it more. Because when we reach for answers that aren't there, we risk missing the ones that are. Mental health, stress, isolation, and the very real human factors that don't make headlines. David Wilcock is gone. The official account is what it is. And unless real evidence says otherwise, that's where it stands. Not every unanswered question has a hidden answer. Sometimes the hardest truth is that there isn't one.